Turn on the news these days, and it's blatantly obvious that mass shootings are a problem.
The United States experienced another weekend of deaths and injuries from at least 12 mass shootings.
What the hell's going on in the United States of America?
A public transit worker shot and killed 9 people at a rail yard Wednesday morning before fatally shooting himself.
Now, there are two main approaches to solving this problem. On the left, the thought is that guns kill people, so we should restrict guns. On the right, the thought is that people kill people, so we need more guns so that the good people can shoot the bad people. Hence, should we side with Big Brother or the Wild West free-for-all? Let's let the data decide. One of the great things about the US is that each state has some level of autonomy to set its own policies. As a result, we have states with very strict gun laws and states with effectively no gun laws. So for each state, and Washington, D.C., we assign a score from 0 to 6, where 0 is no laws and 6 is very strict laws. So a state gains 1 point on our system for each of the following. 1 is a permit required. 2 is registration required. 3 is a license required. 4 are assault weapons restricted. 5 are magazine sizes limited. And 6 are background checks required for private sales. So for example, California scores very highly with a 5.5, whereas Texas and many other states score 0. We will consider data downloaded from gunviolencearchive.org with a link down in the description. Specifically, we will look at the number of mass shootings, the number of people injured in mass shootings, and the number of people killed in mass shootings, all aggregated over the years 2018 and 2019. Now, a mass shooting is defined as a shooting where at least 4 people, not including the actual shooter, are shot, whether or not they survive their injuries. Looking at the data, we had 753 mass shootings over 2018 and 2019. Across these incidents, 3,039 were injured, 837 were killed. When we look at a histogram across all 50 states and DC, we see that 14 states had no mass shootings. Meanwhile, California had the most at 84 mass shootings. Of course, California is also the most populous state. So we aim to model mass shootings statistically based both on population and on the strictness of gun laws. We will use something called a zero-inflated negative binomial regression. So starting from the top, we have classic linear regression. Now this is used with continuous data, typically with normally distributed errors. But for counts data, we often use a Poisson regression. But the Poisson regression is often too rigid when the data has a higher variance than the model allows for. Such over-dispersed Poisson data is better modeled with a negative binomial regression. But that still fails to account for the large number of states with no mass shootings at all. Those are the zeros in our dataset. And hence we complicate things further by fitting a so-called zero-inflated negative binomial regression. This model basically predicts how likely at least one mass shooting is, and then after accounting for those zeros, it uses the negative binomial regression for the other data points. First, we fit such a model to predict the number of mass shootings in each state based on the gun law score, which is between 0 and 6, and the state's population on a logarithmic scale. What we see is that the odds of at least one mass shooting are inversely related to population. Hence, a state like Delaware, with a population of about 1 million, will have a 43% chance of no mass shootings, whereas California, with nearly 40 million people, will have only about a 1 in 5,000 chance of no mass shootings. After that, the model tells us that the mass shootings will increase at a sublinear rate with respect to population. That is, if population doubles, we would expect the number of mass shootings to increase by about 75%. So this is just a statistical estimate. The true increase may be as low as 50%, but it could be as high as 100%. Now, more interesting is the gun laws. no significant effect was found at all for gun laws, meaning that whether you're in California or Texas, the number of mass shootings is only dependent on the population size and not the strictness of the laws. But we're not done yet, and the number of people injured is next. So we can fit the same model to predict the number of people injured in a mass shooting based on the log population, the gun loss score, and the number of mass shootings itself, because it seems obvious that more mass shootings means more people injured. For the zero-inflated part, we see similarly that the odds that no one is injured in a mass shooting is inversely related to population. For predicting total number of people injured but not killed, we see again a sublinear increase with respect to population. So if the population were to double, the number of injured persons in mass shootings would increase by about 25%, plus or minus. Every additional mass shooting increased the total injured by about 2.5% to 5%. And once again, no significant effect up or down for the gun loss score. So it's not looking good for the gun loss score, but we still have to consider the number of people who were killed in mass shootings. So at last we fit the same model to predict the number of people killed in mass shootings. Once again, the odds that no one is killed in a mass shooting is inversely related to a state's population. Furthermore, the number of people killed increases sublinearly with respect to a state's population. This time we see that a doubling of the population would increase the number of people killed by about 35%. Now, this is a statistical estimate. It could be as low as 18, it could be as high as 55%, but it is significant nevertheless. The total number of mass shootings increases the total number killed by about 2 to 4%. But most importantly is gun law. For each point in our 6-point scale, we see an average decrease in the amount of people killed by about 10%. Hence, California should only have about half the number of deaths due to mass shootings than states like Texas after accounting for population differences. And that is strongly significant. A 95% confidence interval tells us that each gun law will decrease the number of deaths by between 4 and 17%. If all 6 laws are implemented, we would expect to see between 22 and 67% fewer fatalities due to mass shootings. So how do we interpret these results? From the data and these models, we see that gun laws have no significant effect on the number of mass shootings or the number of people injured in mass shootings, which perhaps tells us that shooters are neither dissuaded by Big Brother's strict gun laws, but they're also not dissuaded by the idea that everyone else, the good guys out there, will have a gun and just shoot back at them. However, gun laws do significantly save people from being killed in a mass shooting. Now, why might this be the case? Well, I suspect that while guns are still available, and while people still try to shoot each other, strict laws means potential shooters have access to less dangerous guns. No assault weapons, smaller magazines, and such. And thus we have a significant decrease in the number of fatalities for every additional gun law on the books. It's also worth noting that our model fits the data very well. There's only one notable outlier, and that's the state of Wyoming. This is mainly because they barely have over 500,000 people, but still had one mass shooting where 2 were injured and 2 were killed. In conclusion, mass shootings are not the only type of gun violence that can be considered. In future videos, we will go further and look at other types of shootings. We'll look at gun-related accidents, and we'll look at gun-related suicides to see if any laws can, in fact, save people's lives. Thank you so much for watching this video, and please feel free to leave a comment if you like.